Well, job seekers in New York City now know how much they could get paid before even applying. It's part of a new salary transparency law, and it's off to a rocky start. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Erin LeBeau.
And I'm Tamsin Fidel. Well, the law has only been in effect a few days now. There are already a lot of issues. Our next guest says while it's designed to avoid discrimination in hiring, the disadvantage may really outweigh the benefits.
Yeah, so joining us now to talk about it is Rachel Demarest-Gold, a labor and employment attorney at Abrams Finsterman LLP. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
All right, so Rachel, let's jump right in and talk about what types of businesses does this law actually apply to?
So pretty much all employers across the board who have 4 or more employees, and even applies to domestic positions. So if you're listing for 1 or more domestic worker, it applies to you. The only carve out is temporary help firms, and that's a very specific legal structure that applies to few people.
All right, so you said the law has pros and cons, so let's go ahead and start with the positives of this. How does the law help people?
Sure. Well, transparency, right? The idea is that this is going to weed out discrimination. If I know what other people in my area, with my expertise at my level are making, then it's less likely that I'm going to get treated differently because of characteristics I can't control.
Sure.
And in fact, that's the definition of discrimination to some extent, and this does live in the human rights law.
So you think that the disadvantages actually outweigh the positives. What are some of those downsides?
You know, I don't know if I want to say that they outweigh the positives. There are some problems with this. First of all, in terms of the increased labor market competition, which is going to be created as a result, smaller businesses that can't be as competitive are going to have trouble maintaining forces and attracting people, which is, of course, something that's a problem right now with the Great Resignation to begin with. But what you also might see is that all of a sudden, if I know what the person next to me is making or what they're paying across the street, which leads to a demand for raises across the board, employers may need to start condensing all of its wages altogether because of the higher competition.
So employers don't have to post the actual salary, just a range, and some of the ranges they're pretty big, right?
They are. The ranges can be very big, and I think it's important to remember that there are some legitimate reasons for that. But the law says that there needs to be a good faith basis for that range, which means that employers need to be prepared to defend why they have a bottom range and why they have a particular top range. It can't just be wide open so that anybody may apply.
Right.
So what actually happens if a company doesn't comply with this law?
So there are actually 2 things that could happen. First of all, there are civil penalties involved, and those can be as high as $250,000.
Wow.
But then there is also a cause of action available where a current employee who did not see a job posted and therefore was not given the proper opportunity to apply, they get the presumption that this was a discriminatory act, and they can bring a complaint under the city human rights law, which leads to damages, everything from attorney's fees to compensatory damages.
I'm curious, where do you see this backfiring? Say if an employee realizes they could get paid more doing the same job somewhere else, does this cause them to leave and go to the other company? Or if employers realize that that's the case, could they perhaps increase salaries?
I think that there is an expectation it's going to lead to increased salaries and increased competition, but that, of course, brings the conversation back to if I cannot afford to increase the wages that I'm able to pay, if I simply don't have the profit margin in my sized business,
Sure.
then how is it that I'm going to compete, particularly in a labor force that is already so competitive? I think that employers need to, especially because of that reason and the challenges they're facing, they need to take stock of who's getting paid what in their companies now, what accounts for any differences there are, and address discrepancies before they become an issue.
So is there anything that employers can do proactively to prevent these consequences?
Well, sure. For one thing, they can look and see what is going on in their immediate area in jobs that either require similar skill sets or are requiring similar levels of experience. That way they know what they're up against when they're competing for workers in this market.
Rachel, thanks for joining us this afternoon. A lot to take in and a lot for people to be aware of, especially since this has only been in effect for the last few days or so.
Thank you so much for having me.